Okay, welcome to Faith and Calm. We are on class 109, Faith and Calm, and we are just back from Crown Heights from the Lag BaOmer. My wife is in the parade all by herself.
There's no parade.
No parade. She was in the parade.
There's no parade when it's not on Sunday. Okay, go ahead.
She's the parade. And so we're going to try and do a little bit more on Lag BaOmer, just because we're just a little bit basking in the glow of the bonfire. And there was a bonfire right around the block from here. So people did bonfires. Even in Boston, there were a couple bonfires. Bonfire by the Boston Rebbe, the Boston bonfire here by the firehouse. And of course, in Crown Heights, there are bonfires. In Israel, every corner. As I've mentioned before, kids are packing away wood for months in advance to make bonfires 20 feet high, and then every street corner all over the place. So, but what is with this thing? What is the celebration? I mean, it seems to cover all sorts of Jews. You don't see it here so much, but in Israel, religious, non-religious, Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Haredi, Litvish, all these, everybody seems to be celebrating the death of, as we said, the yard site of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And it needs to be understood. Wow, how did he do this? How did he get everybody all together? Because actually, I was listening to it. It was interesting. It was just heard it today. It just popped into my head, so I'll say it anyway. It was a lady who became the mayor of a town called Beit Shemesh. And she says in Beit Shemesh, it's one of the fastest growing cities in all of Israel. It's about 20 miles away from Jerusalem. And they just keep every year. We first went there when David was learning in yeshiva there, and there was a Beit Shemesh Aleph and base. Each, the one hill was the Aleph, and then it was the base, or not Beit Shemesh base. And then they just kept building. Now there's a Gimel, Dalet, hey, Vav. Every year there's another one, Zion. I mean, each mountain gets taken over, and they build another community on top of it. But they're all different. They're different. There's Friday, there's American, there's this, there's that. And she says, we have Russian and there's many other kinds of people. And she said, I never wanted to be the mayor, but I realized that, we, I didn't like the way the town was going. And and people pushed her to become the mayor because she had an interesting approach. She said, everybody, whenever you try and do anything in that city, is typical for Israel, and so forth. The first thing that comes to people's minds is the arguments, the fighting. So, for example, she wanted to make, some sort of I don't forget it was, a social hall or an ice skating rink or something like that. And the first question everybody asks is it going to be open on Saturday or not? Either pro or not. And, and she says, listen, let's try it the other way around. Rather than focus on what the problems are, what divides us and what separates us, let's see if we can come up with things that actually come together. Because I think if we actually analyze it, we're going to find out that, there's more things that we agree on than we don't agree on. But when the first thing out of our mouths are, can I find a way to disagree with you or find a difference with you, then we're going to continue to have these issues. So she's been there for a number of years, and I think it's a very reasonable approach. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Is is this idea of Jewish divisiveness, and then unity, the secret of bringing wholeness and togetherness into our lives. There were a few people who were able to really do this. I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu, he had his opponents. King David, he definitely had his opponents. The Rambam, they burnt his works. So some of the greatest rabbis in Jewish history, but it took a long time before they were accepted. There were three people who really united everybody, and that was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Arizal, the founder of Kabbalah, and Aaron, Moshe's brother. Everybody loved him. And the question is, what was their secret? How did they do this? And so let's first understand what the problem is and why a lot of the problems that you see in the Jewish community and in the world today is all about this fighting and this infighting and this contentiousness and this so forth. And we sort of understand that it is a problem because even with our own selves, when we're not aligned and when we're in doubt and divided in ourselves, we can't get a lot done. A lot of internal commotion and consternation comes from being split and divided and not being able to not be able to see clearly where you're supposed to go. Because when you know what you have to do and you see it has to be done, that sort of like clarifies everything. You get it done. It just goes. It goes. It's going to be done. It's going to happen. And it goes. It goes. So when we're divided, we're not. And it's the same thing in our body too. It's that if there's not good blood circulation or there's a problem obstruction with breathing or something of that sort, when there are breaks between things, then we have problems associated with our health. And it's the same thing if with the brain and the body. It's the brain. The brain is the brain and the body are not aligned. Then we also have problems. So, what is it that brings alignment? What brings us health? What brings the communities together when they're fighting and they're infighting and they're all divided on each other? Then obviously that they also have a lot of there's a lot of difficulties, and when people are united, they go very well. I mean, look at the small little country Ukraine, but they're really all together on this, and they've been doing very well. And the Russians are not together on this; they really don't have their heart in it at all, and they don't do very well at all. So, at all levels, there's this idea of trying to bring an inner harmony. So, the main thing to understand about breaking of harmony is that what happens in the Chabad and Hasidic thought is that all disharmony starts with a breakdown in between the relationship between the soul and the body. When you emphasize one or the other exclusively, then it causes problems. The body, you don't see either of them, how they go together. So people can have a very good life on the body level, and it's a blessing to them. They may live in nice houses and they may be having lots of vacations and lots of stuff, but sooner or later that there develops cracks in that. There are problems with that, and if you don't have live on the soul level, then when something becomes difficult and when the financial situation doesn't go, then where are your resources? You think like you've lost everything. That's what people say. They've lost everything. You haven't lost everything. You're still you, and you can still rebuild. But people think that that the money is everything that keeps them going together. But also the other way too. I'll tell you why bodies divide ourselves. When people put emphasis on the material aspects of the world, even if they might be very religious and so forth, that can also cause a great deal of problems. So there is in action too. There are groups of Jews, less now than there was before, who say, that the only people who are really Jews, are the ones who look like me, who have the beard and have the payas or have the hat or something of that sort. And they look for those distinctions. They look for those things, and they feel that certain people fit in, and certain people don't. And if they don't look like me, then they're not really so Jewish as I am. Well, that's a big problem. And that was part of the problem that that's part of the divisions, that the people see how things look on a material layer. And when you do, and you emphasize the material and not the spiritual, then you do see that there are distinctions. He doesn't do as much as I do more than he, and he's more interested, and he thinks about it, whatever. And so these cause all the divisions. The real masters of the mystical world understood that you have to unite these two things together, that you cannot look at things on the physical level and have any sense of unity, because bodies divide. And when I'm sitting in one place, then another person can't be sitting there in the same place. My respect, my honor, my kavod is something different than somebody else's. And that actually connects to another thing that we had. The other event of Lag BaOmer was that Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 students, and they all, 12,000 pairs, as it says in the song. And they all passed away right in this period between Pesach and Shavuos during Sfira. There was a break during Lag BaOmer where they stopped passing away. And the question is, of course, that everybody brings up is Rabbi Akiva was the one who was most famous for loving your fellow Jew as yourself. He said, that's the Klal Gadol. That is the whole of Torah. Love your fellow Jew as yourself. How could they be students of Rabbi Akiva and not actually fulfill this? So there's an interesting thing. It doesn't say that they didn't love each other. They did love each other. It says they didn't have kavod for each other, which means respect. Because, when you love somebody else, you want them to be like you. You want your children to be like you. You love your children because you relate to them. You also sometimes love your spouse or your friend, some friends, because you know what? You fall in love, you get romantic, and you say, wow, I finally found the person. They understand me. I understand them. I've never been understood before. I finally found somebody who I really feel is my soulmate, because we can talk and talk and talk all night, and we just never finish because we actually get it. We understand each other. So that's love. Love is wonderful, but love is about shared commonality. But there's another part of relationships, another part of marriage, which is you have to respect the differences. Because there's a certain part of my spouse who I don't understand. She's different than me, and that's respect. And so to respect differences, to understand that the differences actually can also bring us together, that is the second part. And that is what they didn't have, and that's what and that brought the destruction. And then Rabbi Akiva had 5 great students, and they following them, and those are the ones we all know about, and they are the ones that they have the 24,000. We don't even know their names. We know who Rabbi Shimon was. We know who Rabbi Eliezer was. We know who Rabbi Yossi was. We know who Rabbi Meir was. We know who Rabbi. I'll forget. Anyway, we used to know. Our memory faded away. These are great rabbis, and that's because they understood this idea of connecting the two together. That you have to know that everything that you do on the spiritual level has to come out on the physical level. Everything that you do on the physical level has to be inspired and connected on the spirit. When you connect the two together, then you can have permanent connection. Now, you may say, well, what's a good example of that? So I was listening to Rabbi Simon Jacobson, and he was talking about a topic that you might not think is actually connected with this, but I think it is connected with this. He says, how do you know how to choose a good rabbi? How do you know? People ask him this question, how do you know what a real rabbi is, So he gave a couple markers, a couple questions, like he says, he asked this rabbi, he says, what's going to happen when Mashiach comes to all the non-religious people in the world? He says, if he says, well, that's their problem or something like that, that's don't follow him, No, Mashiach is about bringing everybody together. But the other answer that he gave was, he said, it's like this. He said, that a real rabbi, he gave 2 ideas. One was, he said that when he was growing up in Crown Heights, people, a lot of people are very sensitive, and they pick up on the people who are real thinkers and more sensitive and more spiritually attuned cannot stand hypocrisy. And so when they feel that they're just being fed a line, just a political line, like be like us because you grew up like us and you grew up in this community or something like that, they reject it a lot. And he says that when he was growing up, he heard the story about the second Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he said, wow, if that's the way this guy lives, then I'm in.
I'm sorry, Yechezkel Shimon, who are you talking about?
I'm talking, okay, I'm sorry. I think I didn't get it clear. So this is a story that was told by Rabbi Simon Jacobson, and he said that when he was growing up in Crown Heights, a lot of his friends and in colleagues in yeshiva, they left the whole idea because they were sensitive to this whole idea. They sensed a certain, it just, you're fitting into the system, And he said, they don't fit in. And he was said he could have gone that way himself. But, it came one point, and he heard this story, and he said, wow, if this is true, then I'm in. What was the story that was really his inspiration? So he said, there's a story with the second Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Mittler Rebbe, and the story goes as follows. As you know, Chabad rabbis, they used to set aside a time to have private audiences with their Hasidim. Like Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, whatever it was. So one time the Mittler Rebbe came to a town, and there was a big line of people, and they all were coming in. They were having a personal yechidus, alone, one-on-one with the Rebbe, asking him about personal questions. And one guy went in, a young man, and he left. And the Mittler Rebbe says, I can't see anybody else today. Told the gabbai, I can't see anybody else today. And there was, everybody was disappointed and whatever, and that was it. And the next day, he started seeing people again. So the guy went in and said, what happened? Why did you say that you couldn't, why did you break off in the middle of this? There were a lot of people waiting in line. They were disappointed and so forth. So the Mittler told the Chassid told him the following. He said, let me do one thing here. Said the following. He said, this young man came into me and he told me something that he did and he wanted some advice on how to fix the situation. And what he told me was so shocking and so awful. I was taken away. And I have the way I operate, the way I'm able to give advice to a Jew is I have to be able to go into their skin and feel something like that in my own life. If I cannot feel that I have the same problem as they have, then I can't really give them a proper heart-to-heart answer to who they are. So what he said was so shocking. I couldn't figure out anything in my life that even remotely came close to what he had done. Now I realized that the fact was that he came to me means that for some reason God sent him because I'm supposed to help him, which means there is something in me that I have to find what is wrong with me that's similar in some way to what he did. I couldn't see it. So I realized I had to stop and I had to pray and I had to beg God and I had to spend a lot of time reading Psalms until I could finally figure out what it was inside of me that I needed to fix, because that's why he came to me. And then when I could fix my problem, then I could fix his problem. The Simon says that's a soul doctor. That's a person who lives on the level of the soul. He doesn't see this person as somebody who he's treating. He's, I'm giving advice. I'm a sage. I have all these canned answers and so forth. If I can't feel it in me, if I can't spiritually, emotionally connect with this person so that I feel like him and we're united together, which is what souls do. Souls can unite together. Bodies can't, everybody's body's different, but on the soul level, you can connect. So he said, wow, if that's what being a Chabad Rebbe is, then I can connect to that idea. So he says that's I think that's in a nutshell a little bit of what the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and what the Arizal taught about seeing in the world the spiritual by emphasizing seeing the spiritual things and not the parts that divide us. What divides us is the material world. Materially, we have different needs, we have different aspects, we've grown up in different locations, we have differences. But on the spiritual level, all the Jews are really one soul. They're all part of one neshama. And then when we see that, we relate to another person on the soul level, then we can all be united together. So that's my blessing for you. And from a message from Lag BaOmer is about trying to appreciate things on the spiritual level, that relate to things on the spiritual level. And I will pass over the mic to my wife. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Yasher Koach.
That was very nice. Thank you.
Very
I like
nice.
that a lot.
Good. So,
Excuse me, I just wanted to say that the other day I was talking to somebody about the divisiveness within the divisions within even the, different communities, whatever, why we have so much divisiveness. So it's interesting. It's such a timely topic for me. Anyway, you said that, Shalamis, you said sometimes, when you come.
I want to say that it's interesting. God has an interesting world, but on that topic, in the time period that I've been an Orthodox Jew for 36, 37 years, something like that. I guess it's going to be like in 1986 till 1986 until Rosh Hashanah. This Rosh Hashanah will be something like 36 to 38 years, whatever. I'm not going to do the math now. And I have to say that the divisiveness is less and less and less. And this past Shabbos, there's division is just something that plagues the Jewish people. And I guess, I don't know, the more you get towards the center of something, the more you get towards the fulcrum of something, the more wild the energy is, and so even so in the frum world there's been a lot of divisiveness. We're all divisiveness on a political level, on a life level, any any Jew's going to give their life for any other Jew. They're just like, on a practical level, we're an extremely loving people. On a political level, we will argue to the last straw. But that arguing has gotten much, much, much less in the past 38 years that I've witnessed, 36 to 38 years. And just this past Shabbos, even within Lubavitch, there are two camps in Lubavitch, right? There's the camp that says Rebbe's Mashiach. The Rebbe said so. I mean, he hinted so broadly. He fits all the criteria. He told us so many incredible things that show that he's Mashiach. And we know that Mashiach is going to be, our Torah sources say Mashiach is going to be, thousands of years ago, they already said Mashiach is going to be revealed and then concealed, and then he'll be revealed again. And so there's a big camp. They're called Mashiachistim, and they say, tell the world, why should we be the only ones who know that Mashiach is coming, that this thing that the whole world's been waiting for is so close? And the other half says, yeah, you can say Mashiach is coming, but don't tell them you think it's the Rebbe. They'll think you're insane because of what happened in 1994. Shh, we don't want them to think we're Meshuggah. Shh. So those two camps have gotten, it was a, very strong opposition. And they have gotten much, much, much closer. There's it's really a completely different world. And each year it gets to be a little bit more harmonious. It's just, there is something happening. There is a solidification at the core. And other groups towards Lubavitch. Lubavitch was an outcast 30 years ago. The Rebbe said such revolutionary things. The Rebbe, when I first became a Lubavitcher, before I became a Lubavitcher, and I asked I was ready from, and I asked my tough questions. Why is Lubavitch like this and the rest of the world like that, and the rest of the world like that? And a rabbi explained to me, and it's so clear. He said, the problem is not the Lubavitchers, the problem is the Rebbe. The Rebbe, all the Rebbes of Chabad have been at least 25 years ahead of their time. And when they first come out with something, everybody pulls their hair and they say, what? What are you doing to us? How can you say such a thing? The whole concept of outreach is Chabad. The whole concept that every Jew is precious is Chabad. I mean, it's Torah. It's not Chabad, it's Torah. But Chabad had to bring it back to life, had to bring it back to, people's day-to-day understanding. And when the Rebbe told, before the 6-Day War, when the Rebbe said to put tefillin on everybody, all Jews, you see some people lined up for the movies on Saturday, go over to them and put on, no, not Saturday, we don't put tefillin on Saturday, but you see some people lined up for the movies in Israel, go, they're going to be Jews, go put tefillin on them. And the rest of the world said, what? Put tefillin on non-frum Jews? What are you talking about? And now every group, no matter how insular, has their little tefillin stand. Everybody does the same thing, but 25 years after Lubavitch started. So, but anyway, now everybody's getting closer and closer to the same page. It's really it's an exciting time. So I just want to say, that's my 2 bits on divisiveness. Does anybody want to say anything before?
I would like to say,
Yes.
to add something to that,
Yes.
and forgive the background noise. My husband was just listening to a show. So
Yeah.
I was going to say that it's interesting that I thought of it too as religious pluralism and the different divides within our Jewish community here, but that there's at least 3 right now books out about the divide between Israeli Jews and American Jews. And I think it's so interesting that it's a timely thing that folks are talking about that. And I would love to believe that even that divide is closer than we think, that somehow
Interesting. I I mean, I know it's hard for Americans to live in Israel, but not because, I think Israelis are too busy fighting with themselves to pay attention to, I don't see that as the core of the fight. It's very interesting. I guess there is a fight, but I'm not aware of that one. I'm more aware of frum and non-frum in Israel, and that's the biggest fight. And different sects of Judaism in America, and probably in Israel.
But I think there are also different ideologies as well about, what people think should be done on a political level.
Yeah,
And
yeah, Israel is it's difficult because it's not only a religious thing, it's a political, politics gets mixed in there and lifestyle gets mixed in. As I said last week, that it's very irritating if from people get a law passed that you can't see movies on Shabbos. It's very irritating to the non-frum, extremely irritating. We don't have that in America because
so what will bring these people together?
it's happening. It is happening. It is happening. Hashem has a plan and it is happening. The divisiveness is, it's happening. It really is happening. You know how many people have become frum? It's just an amazing thing. That's another form of unity. You know, no, when I became frum, okay, it wasn't in the dark ages, but, you know, in 1986, I was working for the Miami Herald. My sister called me from New York and she said, why are you doing this thing? And what are you doing again? I'm sure I've told you this before. It was such an oddity. She didn't know anybody who had a relative who did this crazy thing of becoming frum. Now everybody in every Jewish family almost, there is some nudnik who became frum. You know, it's like it's a normal thing now. There's so many. The whole Baal Tshuva movement is an amazing phenomenon. The phenomenon of people coming back to you know, Torah. It's just an amazing, it's a unifying thing. And so we see the divisiveness, but there is a gorgeous tapestry that is being created right now. So we shouldn't pay attention to the strange things that we see. We should pay attention to the bigger picture, that there is is an amazing phenomenon happening. So
It's an amazing what happening.
a phenomenon, the coming of Mashiach. The world is if you pay attention to little details here and there, it's like, what's happening? The world is going, you know, I saw my sister yesterday. She said the world is coming to its end. I don't think the world's coming to its end. I see a completely different I see it.
But you also told us and have told us that during this time leading up to it, that we will go through a lot of ups and downs, that it will be like a roller coaster.
Yes, but that does not mean that there's not it's not like a gorgeous puzzle in which pieces are falling into place. It means that while those gorgeous pieces are falling into place, there's also this to distract you and that to distract you and this to distract you, so you don't see what's actually happening in front of your eyes. So does anybody else have anything to say before I continue? Yeah, okay.
Just to say that that's really helpful. Like, I really appreciate it when we get back to this idea that it looks like chaos because I'm at the bottom of the barrel because the Geula is happening and we can't see it, but that those pieces are in place. Because I think that many of us are panicked by those upheavals. Like I feel resonance with both Molly and your sister about it feels like sometimes that the world is coming to an end, and I love the idea of the alignment happening even when it feels like it couldn't be more divided, you know.
Yes,
That's a
I
nice
see it all
concept.
over. I see it all over, especially in a time like Lag BaOmer. So I say this every time, and I don't want to drop it this time, and that is that we're in an extraordinary. I say four things before we begin. We're in an extraordinary time. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, who was never wrong about any public prediction, told us that the Geula is unfolding. Number two, we were meant to be here. Our souls, we were in the world, and probably at least a couple times before, but it was meant to be that we're here right now at this incredible junction of human history. Number three, we have all the tools we need. We have the Torah, which is our guidebook, and the mitzvahs, which are our power tools. And number four, what we're doing tonight actively enhances the process of redemption. So we were just in Crown Heights for Lag BaOmer, and I have to say that that the conjunction of time and place, being in Lag BaOmer in Crown Heights, is almost consistently the most extraordinary times of my life. And it's just a very holy day and an extremely holy place. And I've had some of the most amazing experiences of my life, the most beautiful, profound, holy experiences of my life on Lag BaOmer and Crown Heights. And this year was no exception. And I'm not going to talk about it in detail. I think maybe I'll do it next week because because I'm extraordinarily sleep deprived. But I have something else short in mind. But it's really it's really a phenomenal time, and Crown Heights is a phenomenal community. I spent the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Shabbos and Sunday, on and the most coveted block of President Street. The Rebbe used to live on President Street, and and somehow I ended up staying in this particular block on President Street, one gorgeous house after another, and the kindness that everybody does in Crown Heights, rich and poor alike, is on a level that is just not seen. I don't see it anywhere else. I'm sure it happens in Yerushalayim too, but it's unprecedented. There are people who have gorgeous mansions, and it's a free for all for whoever wants to come in, eat, sleep, stay. It's like a mansion that they're happy to be like a flop house, not a flop house, but if a Jew needs something, they are open giving. They're open and giving. The people that we stayed with, they never met us before in their life. And somebody that I know called them, and we stayed there, and they were so gracious. It was so amazing. And across the street, the Rubashkin home. Rubashkin home has been like this for decades. I never saw the inside before. It's a gorgeous home. And anybody who wants, the door is not closed. You just walk in. You can walk in and on holidays and on Shabbos and holidays, they feed whoever. They feed dozens, and on Sukkot, they feed hundreds a day. For an entire, they feed from Rosh Hashanah to Sukkot, they feed hundreds of people a day, and that's what they do. Can you imagine? You have to be very busy if you're going to feed hundreds of people a day. It's a thing. So, and I told you last week, that same family, they for decades, they had, I don't know if they still had it, they had a restaurant in Brooklyn, and poor people knew about it, and they could go in there, sit down like anybody else, have a nice meal. They would get their bill, and they would come to the register, and the people at the register knew exactly who they were, and they would make motions as if they had received money from them, and then the person would leave, so that the person wouldn't have any embarrassment. It wasn't any kind of anyway. So anyway, let me go into just briefly what I wanted to say. In this last week's Parsha, it talks about Shemitah. And Shemitah is, there's a wacky law in Judaism that once every 7 years, you have to in Israel only, if you live in Israel, you have to don't do anything to your land for an entire year. You can't plow, you can't seed, you can't prune, you can't do any of those things. And not only that, you have to put signs all around your property if you own a farm saying Hefker, free for all. Whoever wants, come take. It's not my field this year. This year, you own it as much as I own it. And so people would worry, but what am I going to, if not only I can't sow and plow and prune, but also I have to share my field with everybody and the animals. You can't even keep the animals out. The fox can come eat. Everybody can come eat. So, people might think, how am I going to manage this? And Hashem has his reasons for why he does these things, but it cultivates tremendous faith in God. And you have to be a very strong person to live with Shemitah, to be a farmer and live with Shemitah. And Jews have done it for the thousands of years, more than 3,000 years that they've been in Israel. The Jews have done it. And not all Jews, but the religious Jews have done it. They keep this thing called Shemitah. And they have seen miracles. They invest in Hashem. They say, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to learn Torah every year. This year, I have the whole year off. And you're going to provide for me, Hashem. I know that. and Hashem provides. And Hashem, there's so countless miracles of, like swarms of grasshoppers that plagued Israel, and they didn't touch farms. They kept Shemitah. And people see the hand of God. The people who keep Shemitah see the hand of God. It's a crazy level and once every 49 years, you not only keep Shemitah, but you keep another year after it called Yovel. So you don't work your land for 2 years in a row. And it's a crazy thing, but people do it and they see the hand of God. So I want to give a modern day story of the topic was aligning your body and soul. And when you, first of all, it works both ways. You cannot be just a soul divested of a body. You have to be a soul without a body is nothing. A soul without a body can't do a single mitzvah, and you have to honor the body. You have to give the body its basic needs, and you have to take care of the body like your best friend. Your body enables you to do anything holy. You can't do holy things without the body. And so a person is obligated to take not only care of their body, they're obligated to take very good care of their body. And conversely, the body can't live without, the body rots away. The body gets depressed and distanced and alienated and frightened without the soul. So the body has to take care of the soul too by doing by doing Torah and mitzvahs. That's the food for the soul. So a modern day story of living body and soul, aligning your body and soul. I just heard it this week. This woman just told it this week. I don't know her first name. I only know that she's Bubby Shvei. Bubby means grandma. And I heard her voice telling the story on my WhatsApp. So Bubby Shvei's husband was Rabbi Shvei. He passed away last year. And he was a very revered rabbi in Crown Heights, very loved and revered. That's how tired I'm mispronouncing words. And she, this Bubby must be in her 80s, I imagine. And she got on the WhatsApp and she told us with a delicious accent. She got on the WhatsApp and told a story about when she was a young woman. She lived in Israel. The Shveis lived in Israel for a long time, and her older sister Leah, her mother really, her parents didn't have a lot of money, and when it came time for the older sister to get married, they found a guy. They weren't Lubavitchers, they were Panovitchers, and Panovitch is a very they're extremely, like many different groups in the frum world, they revere Torah and they revere people who learn Torah a lot. So this Bubby said, no, Bubby is the one who's telling the story. She said that her mother really wanted a big Torah scholar for her daughter Leah, and they found one. And in that time and in that place and in that community of Panovitch, a guy who really knew how to learn Torah beautifully, he could come with a price tag, and they would, the parents of such a person would say, my son is an awesome learner. He learns Torah beautifully, and it's a shame for him to do anything else. So if you want your daughter to marry him, we're asking that you buy them an apartment, that you buy them the furniture. And of course, the girl had to pay the majority of the wedding too. So that's what they requested. And her mother, Bubby Shvei's mother, said, it's a deal, we're gonna do it. And afterwards, Leah and her sister Rivka her sister Bubby. Bubby's one of the sisters. And they came to the mother and said, Ma, how did you do this? What did you do? How did you say such a thing? We don't have any money. How did you say you're going to buy an apartment? How did you say you're going to buy the furniture? And you're going to pay for most of the wedding? How are you going to do it, Ma? We don't have anything. How are you going to do it? And the mother said, it says in Torah that Hashem helps good Jews even when they sleep. She said, I want somebody who can learn Torah very well for my daughter. And I promised, And you're going to see that Hashem is going to back me up. That was on a Friday. That was on a Wednesday. As Bubby Shvei recalls, on Friday morning, they went down to check the mail, and they found an envelope from Germany, and her Bubby Shvei's parents had applied for reparations for war damages, and they hadn't heard. But 2 days after she made this deal, they got a letter, and the amount that was given, they were able to buy the apartment, buy the furniture, and buy everything, and pay for the wedding. So so it was a miracle to the whole family. They just, and especially this Bubby Shway, when she was young, she said she saw when you put your trust in Hashem, Hashem backs you up, just like the people with the people who do Shemitah in Israel till this day. So this Shabbos, I'll just a tiny little slice from my Lag BaOmer and Shabbos. So one of the reasons I go, I love Crown Heights on Lag BaOmer, but one of the reasons that I go is there's a women's convention, a women's Mashiach convention that I go to, and I speak at it usually. And I was asked to speak on Shabbos lunch, and on Shabbos lunch there's no amplification, there's no microphones, and so it had, since Pesach, my voice has been okay, but not in its top shape, because various factors having to do with Pesach and late nights and late eating times and stuff like that. So I had already lost my voice once this week in school, and I was trying to do my best to have a good voice, trying to do my best. I tried not to eat late, even though on Shabbos we eat very late now. I tried to do my best in everything, and I prepared. My preparation for the speech was one of the most fun and exhilarating and holy things that I've done in a long time. It was I could tell you about that I will tell you about that some other time. It was one of the most magnificent experiences of my life. But anyway, Shabbos morning rolls around. I go to 770 to Shul. It's a treat to be able to daven there. And around 11 o'clock, all of a sudden I start not feeling well. And I know when I'm feeling well and I'm not feeling well. I start not feeling well. And not only do I start not feeling well, my voice starts to say sayonara. After the davening, I wanted to say something very important to somebody. I wanted to give her a very important piece of information. And I was talking face to face with her, and I had no voice. My voice sounded like a frog. I'm thinking, Shamas Yidus, in an hour and a half, you're going to have to speak to a long table of people with no amplification, and the acoustics are terrible. And so I didn't know what to do. I was thinking, oh my. And I had a little bit of time. I went home, and I thought about it. I knew that I had gotten a bracha from the Rebbe for this weekend. I had gotten a bracha to go. And I said to myself and to the world and to God, and I said, you know what? There is no way that I'm not going to be able to give this speech. There is no way. And there is no way that I'm not going to have a voice. I am going to have a voice, and my speech is going to come out fine, and it's going to be well received, and everything is going to go well. There's no other reality. There is no other reality. And I took a nap for 20 minutes, and I came to the lunch where I was supposed to speak. And when it was my turn to speak, out rolled my voice. I spoke for at least a half an hour, at least, I would say, in a big voice, and everything went well. And when, so what a person can do is align themselves completely with Hashem. If this is what Hashem, I know that I'm doing the work of Hashem here. And I worked very hard on that speech. And it took me a long, it was a very, very interesting preparation for it. And I knew that there was no way that it wouldn't happen. The Yetzer Hara tried to scare me and say, yeah, all that work out the window, no voice. But it wasn't going to happen. And so anyway, um, so okay, so anyway, so another time I will tell you about the experience. And does anybody else have something else they'd like to say? Because I'm going to turn off the recorder right now.